Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone, in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8, the lunatic angel, your Tsundere streamer who doesn't stream. I think we'll have a playlist called Tsundoro. Maybe it'll be me doing various TV tropes, things like this. Or if I come across any sort of new things to play for Let's Plays. I don't know. Bubblegum Crisis. Technically it's 3 series. There's Bubblegum Crisis, Bubblegum Crash, and the one I strongly recommend most of all, which both in the descriptions and the next videos in this playlist, I'll show some good music. Perhaps other things to go into after Bubblegum Crisis might be Serial Lane Experiments, Elfin Lied, Dot Hack Sign, perhaps even Dot Hack Infection. But some of these could take a very long time to read. Night Sabers. Or what if Joan Jett and Coco Channel became the new wave terrorists? Shadowjack RPG informs, speaking on women's Sentai group's Bubblegum Crisis. One of the groundbreaking anime series to come out of Japan in the late 1980s and early 1990s, Bubblegum Crisis is a film noir cyberpunk epic. That reminds me, Ghost in the Shell. Technically, there's a new series that's definitely a little bit more of the manga art style, but it's much more upbeat and cheerful, which that's good. I like having more flavors of cyberpunk. But yeah, I would say this. The new Ghost in the Shell, very interesting. But I would also recommend watching all of the old Ghost in the Shells if you have the opportunity. But I understand, honestly, it's hard to find time to do anything, let alone, I mean, we all have animes that are like, I want to rewatch that, or I want to watch this new episode, or I'm sure no one else has games on their backlog that they've played a little bit, and they're like, oh, I'll come back to that. Heavily influenced, I skipped a part, epic with superhero subtext, especially Iron Man, heavily influenced by the films Blade Runner, The Terminator, and Streets of Fire. In the early 2030s, the world economy and some of its politics is controlled by the megacorporation Genome, whose primary product is the Boomer. Humanoid robots that can be manufactured for any purpose, from cheap labor to prostitution to heavy combat. Opposing Genome and its plots are the Night Sabers, 4 women in astoundingly advanced powered combat suits, led by Celia Stingray, the daughter of the scientist who invented Boomer technology, and who was murdered by Genome's agents when they stole it. The meaning of the title is obscure. Most commentators believe that it refers to the point in blowing a gum bubble, where it has equal chances of exploding all over your face or collapsing limply. The mid-21st century society depicted in the show appears to be approaching a similar crisis point. Why does that feel relatable? In what is certainly a coincidence, the OVA production roughly corresponds to the peak and burst of Japan's bubble economy, 1988 to 1991. Originally plotted for 13-hour-long episodes, Bubblegum Crisis was forced by a mixture of budget issues and internal politics between the two studios, producing the show to cease production with the 8th episode, which wasn't an ending at all. A 3-hour sequel series, Bubblegum Crash, is believed to be a compressed version of the plot of the remaining 5 episodes, but is generally considered to be inferior to the original. In 1990, a prequel series, AD Police Files. Oh, that reminds me, there's all sorts of older animes. What was it? Dominion, Tokyo Police, whatever it was. You guys know what I mean. Oh, there's Appleseed. There are so many older anime. If you guys know any animes that you would like me to read the TV tropes for, let me know. Or video games, for that matter. Or anything else you can think of that would be, heck, movies. Maybe a certain band. Maybe like the band Korn or System of a Down has a TV tropes. At this rate, what am I going to do? Read Markiplier's TV tropes? We're like, oh, here's this VTuber. Read her TV tropes. What else could? Then again, we've already seen the media sections in the previous videos I've done, where I was focusing on Umineko. There's literally so much. Even TV tropes for religions and for literary works written thousands of years ago. Even for webcomics. I still say 8-Bit Theater by Dungeons & Dragons is pretty cool. Heck, Looking for Group, Least I Could Do, Bob and George comics, that was a Mega Man sprite comic. Foamy the Squirrel. Okay, I'm getting distracted. I need to stay focused. Was released featuring Cowboy Cop Leon. Oh, Cowboy Bebop. We could read that. Stay focused. Leon in his early days on the Force, 5 years before the series. Our Talsorian games published, StarCraft and the original Warcraft RTS. Stay focused. Crisis. Published Bubblegum Crisis Mega Tokyo 2033, the role-playing game using their new fusion system in 1996. In addition to the game, the books contained a guide to the episodes and with unused sketches and notes on unused ideas. It was reimagined in 1998 as the TV series Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040, but the result bears almost no resemblance to the earlier show. It kept the broad strokes of the premise and the hard suit designs, but broadly changed the character designs and personalities and went off in a different direction from the original series, which honestly I liked Tokyo 2040 quite a bit, even though it technically takes place in the year 2032, right? After like the second great Kanto earthquake, which apparently happens in 2027. So apparently next year, guys, there's going to be a great giant earthquake that's going to split Japan in two. It's also going to like put a large chunk of California in the ocean. And then there's going to be like a giant bay right off the coast of Arizona. I don't know. At this point, you might also say there'd be a giant landmass that'll come up to the east of the Carolinas and to the east of New Zealand. Heck. Illinois probably going to be fully submerged. The entire state will be gone. Okay. I'm just imagining anime titties at the moment. I don't know why I really got my mind there, but okay. Focus. But broadly changed the character designs and personalities, went off in different directions from the original series. This version began with Lina as an office lady who moved to Tokyo to join our heroes, the mysterious Night Sabers. In 1999, a second AD Police series, AD Police to Serve and Protect, was released. A third OVA focusing on the AD Police Parasite dolls was released in 2003. Key to the Metal Idol. For a time, there was a talk of a sequel series, Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2041, that ADV Films would have been more involved with in terms of production and story, but it never materialized. This project probably died when ADV went bankrupt and reorganized itself into Section 23 Films. In 2008, the company AIC announced that they'd signed an agreement to let a Singaporean studio begin production of a live-action version of Bubblegum Crisis, which has ballooned into a co-production between the 6 countries, including Australia and China. Planned for release in 2012, fan reactions seem to be skeptical, especially with the reported $30 million budget, yet hopeful, especially with the possibility of another anime revival as a tie-in. However, the complete lack of news in over a decade since its announcement suggests the project entered development hell, and has probably since been silently cancelled. The last installment of the franchise is a one-shot 2012 light novel, Bubblegum Crisis Hard Metal Guardians, which reimagines the story high school AU style. Additionally, Anime Go ran a very successful Kickstarter to fund a Blu-ray release of the original series. Both the original series and Tokyo 2040 are available on Hulu. Tropes applying to both series, the original series and Tokyo 2040. Acoustic license. A great example in the Tokyo 2040 series episode, minute by minute, Pris and Leon have a quiet conversation together while speeding down a highway on motorcycles. No evidence of radios here, and in fact it's even crazier because Leon is wearing an open-face helmet while Pris's helmet is totally enclosed, which would muffle her voice even if they were at a dead stop. Adaptation dye job. From the OVAs to 2040, Nene went from a redhead to a blonde in 2040. Cilio became white-haired instead of a brainy brunette. Lena, Maki, and Mason went from black hair to brown. Dali went from a redhead to having brown hair. Adaptation personality change. The Cilia of the OVAs is calm and collected, whereas the 2040 incarnation was more volatile and prone to outbursts. Being a test subject from her father may be the cause of the 2040 Cilia's instability. As with George, Stacy, and the Amazing Spider-Man 1, Leon, who was supportive of the Night Sabers in the OVA series, started off in the Tokyo 2040, considering them dangerous vigilantes and thinks they make the AD police look bad. Dali went from not full-on camp gay to straight gay. The Pris of the OVAs wore her anger, annoyance, and other assorted emotions on her sleeve, while her 2040 incarnation is the stoic, though still prone to shooting her mouth off when angry. Adaptational badass. While many people debate whether the original or new series is best, what they don't debate is that Lena took 20 levels of badass in 2040, while in the original series she was a ditzy, materialistic, and to most of the series plot, inconsequential character. In 2040 she's a much more down-to-earth girl with a strong personality and a hidden intolerance of authority. A big part of her character in the new series is how being a Night Saber lets her cut loose and be more true to herself than she can be when in a civilian world. She has such a strong personality she actually manages to impress Pris of all people, and when she joins the Night Sabers, she becomes their close combat specialist. Pris is Lancer and her full equal in combat. Nin also got a bit of a badass upgrade in 2040. In the original OVA, she was content to watch the action of the sidelines while working her hacker magic, and the few times she had to engage in physical combat usually ended badly for her. While in 2040, she's much more aggressive and usually handles herself better when in combat, though sometimes things still don't work out for her. Boomers are much stronger in 2040, as one rogue boomer can create enough trouble for the whole team, whereas they could take out scores of boomers in the original series. series. Boomers also need to be targeted in a specific area of their cores. In 2040, otherwise, they'll still function, whereas any generalized amount of damage was enough to take them out in the original. Adaptational jerkass. Nene is kind of a brat at the start of 2040 as opposed to the lovable, goofy girl she was in the original. She gets better, though. Adaptational sexuality. In the original OVA, Pris initially had little interest in Leon, but showed increasingly interest in Episode 6, Red Eyes, and 2040. By contrast, she's tsundere for Leon and doesn't appear to reciprocate Lena's affections, though Lena also liked at least one guy during the course of the show while being infatuated with the soft-spoken Nigel. Conversely, Lena and Nen's subtext, though in 2040 they were usually more like surrogate siblings until the series finale, and Scylla's textual bisexuality were added in 2040. Adaptational wimp. Oh, I could also maybe do Shinji. Hey, there's a fanfiction called Shinji of Warhammer 40k. Adaptational wimp. The 2040 version of Cilia is in a more mission control role, more rarely going into the field, whereas the OVA's version of Cilia led the lightsabers into battle herself. Oddly enough, this happens in Genome to Genome. On the original OVA, V 2040 continuities. It's such continuates. Continuities. It's such an unstoppable juggernaut that the lightsabers are locked into a shadow war where most of the time the best they can do is make sure that the company's excesses don't hurt innocents, and the only threats they can do any damage to are on the mass destruction level. Galatia's robot war on 2040, Largo needing to break out the killsat WMDs for Quincy to even listen to him on Red Eyes, while in an anarchist bombing campaign brings it to its knees in Parasite Dolls. The Lightsabers' armor are less advanced in 2040 continuity as they have time limit for operational time. Whereas in the original, there was no time limit. Unlike the original Brian J. Mason, who donned a mini mecha to fight Cilia and later became the boomer overlord Largo, instead looking to find Galatia to overthrow Quincy and Tokyo for him. Age is relative. Lena is only a year older than Pris, who is supposed to be 19 years old. In general, a lot of the characters, both in the original 2040, don't look their intended ages. Cilia is 23 or 24, but looks like she's in her early 30s. In the 2040, Leon looked to be early mid-20s, but was only 24, etc. All your base are belong to us. 2040 has a full-scale invasion of the Sabers base once Galatia starts the robot war. Ascended fanboy. The 2040 version of Lena came to Tokyo because she'd become a fan of the Sabers and wanted to join them. Because of her encounter with Pris and other lucky breaks, she succeeded. Attack its weak point. In 2040, boomers can only be destroyed by attacking their core, a small red sphere embedded somewhere in their body. This serves to make Nene's combat role more understandable than the OVA's. She uses her sensor equipment to locate the core. Bait-and-switch lesbians. Tokyo 2040 spent its first half building the senpai-kohai relationship and pseudo-romantic friendship between Pris and Lena, and final half of the series drops this subplot like a hot potato for the sudden romance between Pris and Leon that fits the off-screen explanation part of the trope to a T. Leon shows up at her club while she's on stage, does a swammy clap for her, Pris grins a bit, and from then on, they're treated as dating. Ironically, it was the original OVA that gave rise to the mantra among many early anime fans that all women in anime are lesbians unless they're bisexual. Barbie doll anatomy. At the end of the 2040 episode 26, Nene and Lena are stranded nude on a desert island after their suits burn away and upon re-entering the atmosphere, most likely as a consequence of Japanese censorship laws, which forbid explicit frontal nudity. Beats still my heart. When Lena starts virtual reality training, she is battling against a rogue robot artificial intelligence. It's not exactly a heart, but she rips out something organ-like and squeezes it in her hand until brown liquid comes out, and then recoils in horror at what she just did. Bittersweet ending. 2040 ends with the world being saved, but Cilia is a mess until reuniting with Maki, allowing her a chance to recover, while Nene and Lena are stranded on an uninhabited island while Pris is alone in the desert, all three with little to no chance of being rescued or surviving. Even worse is all three ladies are completely naked because their hard suits broke down into scrap metal, presumably from re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Whatever happens to them now remains a mystery. Break the Cutie. Nene undergoes this in 24 episodes. The Mind Nation underground and woke up with a monster. With her bratty arrogance, finally comes back to bite her in the ass while she tries to play matchmaker between Pris and Leon, earning her a long overdue scolding from Celia for endangering the team's secrecy, and then gets her ass handed to her in a boomer fight when she tries to rush in and beat the boomer by herself in a misguided attempt to prove herself. Probably more break the haughty in her case, though. Casting gag. In the Latin American Spanish dub, Pris is voiced by Rebecca Patiño, who also dubbed Ellen Page, the same character from which Pris herself is based of. Catapult to glory. The Night Sabers launch into battle via a magnetic mass driver in their base. The Citadel comes to life. In the climax, Glacia transforms her fortress in the Genome Tower into a giant replica of her own body, cross-popping veins. Near the end of the 2040 series, Lena and Nene are riding behind Pris on her motorcycle. All three of them are wearing hard suits. Lena and Nene get cross-popping veins on their hard suit helmets, which then detach and float away on the wind. Darker and edgier in comparison to the classic. This series is quite a bit darker and much more serious in terms of presentation. Presentation or presentation? Rogue boomers are more like horrifying mutated monsters as opposed to rampaging robots of the original, while many of the newly interpreted characters have become either meaner, I say either or either, meaner or more sullen than they were in the original series. Pris's haircut is even a literal representation of this, as it goes from light brown and rounded in the original OVAs to dark brown and semi-spiky in here. The change in music also helps to show that this is, as while classic OSTs is pretty upbeat and full of pop rock, 2040 soundtrack is much more gloomy and serious, falling more along the lines of heavy metal, Dark Lord of life support. In 2040, Quincy is always shown sitting in a chair with life support equipment hooked up to him. Die Hard. On an X. The 2040 version of Nene gets to go through this, along with the Chief and two random office workers when Glacia reanimates the Boomer record stored at ADP headquarters into a zombie robot apocalypse. Disabled in the adaptation, Celia is shown with a mental instability, possibly as a result of the creation of Boomer tech involving an experiment with her brain. Quincy is depicted as a Dark Lord on life support, Earthquake Machine. What caused the earthquake that caused the Tokyo in 2040's backstory? Genome tried to keep a runaway boomer technology getting loose, deciding to employ the device to bury the lab and causing the city to be rebuilt. However, this didn't destroy the technology as it later got loose. Going commando in 2040, the Night Sabers are at first commando in their plug suits. Later, they don't even get plug suits and are naked underneath their upgraded power armor, which is now transparent in places, lampshaded by Celia when she tells Mackie that he's in the girls' changing room when they're discussing this, and a totally flustered Mackie runs away all red-faced. Guinea Pig Family. In Tokyo 2040, Professor Tsundere created the boomer prototypes Mackie and Glacia by implanting their cores inside a young Celia's brain and letting them learn from its structure. He created the cores by dissecting his wife's brain, which is why it only worked with Celia. Heroic sacrifice. We didn't get to see it. But Kimball the Boomer saved Michelson from an assassination attempt by Soremi's minions using a helicopter gunship at the expense of his artificial life. Hour of Power. A major weakness of the 2040 hard suits is that they're battery powered, so any of the sabers might lose power if they aren't careful. Idiosyncratic episode naming. Tokyo 2040 uses 1970s heavy metal hard rock song titles as episode titles. Loving a Shadow. Pris's infatuation with Nigel in 2040. Celia comes dangerously close to this herself until it becomes clear that Nigel does care for her on some level. More teeth than the Osmond family. Boomers that go rogue in 2040 frequently grow lots of fangs. Musical theme naming. The 2040 episodes have titles that are taken from famous or infamous songs or albums, including Jefferson Starships, We Built a City, The Doors, Light My Fire, Eagles, One of These Nights, Pink Floyd's Atom Heart, Mother, and The Police's Walking on the Moon. Mythology gag. Lena can be occasionally seen wearing a sweatband on her head, just like she nearly always did in the original series. named by the adaptation. Quincy's surname was never revealed in the OVA, but 2040 gives a... I don't know how to say that. Ninja pirate zombie robot. Particularly in 2040, the boomers start off as mostly believable humanoid cyborgs, only to degenerate into magical fusing zombie ghost robots by the end. It's called nanobots. Pineal weirdness. Dr. Stingray created the first boomer cores by implanting a copy of his wife's pineal gland into Celia's brain. The Night Saber's hard suits are derived from the same technology, which means that they're only compatible with a very small number of people. They also resonate with prototype boomer Galatia to give everyone visions of Celia's past. Pink means feminine. Celia humiliates Pris with this trope in Tokyo 2040 episode My Nation Underground when the tomboyish biker loses a bet to her flighty boss, forcing her to be photographed wearing an ugly pink dress, while Nene and Lena laugh at her and mock her. It made more sense in the original Japanese language version, where Pris wanted Nene kicked off the team for digging into her personal life, than in the English language version, which changed it to Pris wanting Nene removed from the team for her own safety. Comes back to bite Celia, Nene, and Lena in the ass when Pris temporarily quits and refuses to help them due to Celia lying to them and abusing their trust. Incidentally, pink tends to be a prominent color in Nene's heart suits, and 2040 indicates that she and Lena both own and wear at least one set of pink underwear each. Plucky office girl. Lena's day job in 2040. In the OVA, she was the aerobics instructor turned stockbroker in Crash. Red herring. In episode 9, there are numerous strange boomer disappearances in the underground before a rogue boomer finally appears. Except it was not responsible, but rather kind of weird experiment that makes short work of said boomer. The appearance of the rogue boomer was just a coincidence. Space elevator. Tokyo 2040 has Zone of the Enders. That's a good one. Numerous strange boomer disappearances in the underground before rogue boomer finally appears. Except it was not responsible, but rather some kind of weird experiment that makes short work of the boomer. The appearance of the rogue boomer was just a coincidence. Space elevator, Tokyo 20... We'll come back to this. Since this will be the first video in this playlist, I'll use a picture not related to this, but the next one will be something to do with the series. Okay. Plus, I should also not make super long videos. Bye.